It's Thursday, February 3. This is the news on PBCJ. I'm Gabrielle Thompson. Prime Minister Andrew Holness is appealing for private sector partnerships with the government to build more houses for vulnerable Jamaicans. He was speaking at Wednesday's handing over of 2 housing units in the Northeast St. Andrew constituency. Simone Absalom Gale has that story.
The Prime Minister says the government will be scaling up the number of indigent houses made available through the program, and he's appealing to the private sector to come on board and assist.
As you can see, we will be able to deploy solutions that are inexpensive for the budget of some private sector companies, but would be, the greatest thing ever to happen to some families. So there is an opportunity for the private sector who would want to fulfill their corporate social responsibility. Who knows, they may have a factory or a store in an area and they know of a family or two who are living in really deplorable conditions and they would want to help. Well, there is this program, the new social housing program.
He says the government has already sorted out the administrative, technical and construction issues and are now ready to expand to reach even more of the estimated 10,000 families whose homes are uninhabitable.
So by the end of this year, we would have completed another 100 or more of the units, just rapidly, because we now know how to do it and what to do. And we can do it fairly rapidly, as you would have seen. We have done this in 2 months.
Prime Minister Holness stated that every Jamaican is entitled to good shelter.
What is it that our society is moving towards? And our society, under my leadership, is moving towards providing the basic standard of shelter for all Jamaicans. It is not something that is going to happen overnight. But little by little, 1 by 1, 10 by 10, we are making progress.
The government has so far constructed 116 rooms in 46 units over this program, with 26 more units under construction. For the news on PBCJ, I'm Simone Absalom Gale.
Minister of National Security Dr. Horace Chang says money laundering and the financing of terrorism are threats to the financial sector that must be addressed with a sense of urgency. He made that comment while addressing the House of Representatives on the Tourism Prevention Designated Reporting Entity Trust and Corporate Services Provider Order 2022 on Tuesday.
The National Security Minister says the order forms part of Jamaica's National Action Plan to enhance its money laundering counter-terrorism financing framework.
Money laundering and the financing of terrorism are threats to our financial sector that we must address with a sense of urgency. Any loophole in our financial system will provide opportunities for criminals to move their funds to, through or within jurisdictions that do not have the requisite safeguards. Strengthening our framework will therefore disrupt the access of criminals to resources and make it more difficult for them to profit from their illicit activities and to prevent them from, in fact, getting involved in some of the activities they tend to get involved in.
In explaining how the designation would strengthen the financial or non-financial system, Dr. Chang notes that any loopholes within our financial system will provide opportunities for criminals to move their funds to, and this piece of legislation combats that practice.
Section 15 of the Terrorism Prevention Act provides that certain entities, namely reporting entities, must periodically report whether they are in possession or in control of property owned or controlled by or on behalf of a listed entity. Reporting entities must also notify the Financial Investigation Division where they suspect that a transaction involves property that is connected with or intended to be used in the commission of a terrorism offense or is involved with or for the benefit of a listed entity or a terrorist group.
He says the order will ensure the supervision of trust and corporate services, such as real estate dealers, casinos, gaming machine operators, and accountants.
Madam Speaker, the effective supervision of trust and corporate service providers is one of the targets of Recommendation 40 of the Financial Action Task Force for TAF recommendations. Members of this House will be acutely aware of the implications of failing to adequately implement FATF recommendations. In its 2017 Mutual Evaluation Report, several deficiencies were identified in Jamaica's regulatory framework concerning trust and corporate services providers. The monitoring of providers of trust and corporate services was identified as one of the areas requiring improvement in Jamaica's national risk assessment. The implementation of the Terrorism Prevention Designated Reporting Entity, Trust and Corporate Services Providers, Order 2022, and other critical anti-money laundering and counter-terrorism financing initiatives that are in train will further strengthen Jamaica's financial systems.
Dr. Chang notes that the order is, therefore, another critical step in Jamaica's anti-money laundering efforts and will ensure compliance within certain international systems. For the news on PBCJ, I'm Simone Absalom Gale.
There were 482 fatalities on our roads in 2021. This has renewed the call for the long-promised new road traffic regulations. Well, the regulations were tabled in Parliament on Tuesday. The legislation has passed into law, but it could not be implemented without the accompanying regulations. The regulations were not debated on Tuesday, as the House of Representatives will be prorogued on February 7. Among the new proposals are that a motorist or car dealer who resets, alters, or otherwise interferes with the odometer of a motor vehicle with the intent to change the recorded distance could be slapped with a fine not exceeding $250,000 or imprisonment for a term not exceeding 5 months on conviction in a parish court. Operating a public passenger vehicle on a road without the proper papers could see offenders being fined up to $50,000 or face a term not exceeding 1 month on conviction in a parish court. The Ministry of Finance is moving ahead with plans to restructure the public service compensation package. Portfolio Minister Dr. Nigel Clark told the House of Representatives on Tuesday that his team has commenced a series of stakeholder meetings on the matter.
We'd have had a meeting last week with all public sector bargaining groups where we'd have given them an overview of what is to come. We will continue those consultations, but in smaller groups, maybe on an individual bargaining group basis, or groups that are similarly aligned and small in size. We might consider them together. We'll speak to members, get parliamentarians together, get whoever is paid, whoever can be considered a public servant. We intend to reach out with information and to engage in some kind of, to engage in ensuring people understand the principles behind the restructuring and what to expect.
The public sector wage restructuring process is slated to be implemented on April 1.
The current way in which the compensation is structured now, and we're abandoning that completely and have a new compensation structure.
The public sector compensation review is expected to be undertaken during the 2022-23 fiscal year.
There are components of expenditure that contribute to a public officer's compensation that are not, for historical and legal reasons, not included in that wage and salaries line that we commonly use to establish the wage to GDP ratio. In the restructuring exercise, we aim to tidy all of that up, and anything to do with compensation will be in someone's salary.
The public is being warned about a fake recruitment scam for jobs in Canada. The Ministry of Labour says neither Jamaica nor Canada is associated with the fake message, which is being circulated on social media platforms. The ministry says job seekers should ensure the legitimacy of any offer of employment prior to the payment of fees or providing personal information. You can contact the Labour Ministry to verify information about recruitment offers. More increases at the pumps or regular market updates, plus Sygnus credit investment sees record growth. It's all here in this extended business report. There's no slowing down for Sygnus Credit Investments Limited, SCI. The company has diversified across 31 portfolio company investments, 11 industries, and 7 territories. For the financial year ending June 30, 2021, the alternative investments company recorded its highest net profit and earnings per share in its 4-year history and surpassed a milestone of $5 million for the very first time. Now, speaking last Wednesday at the company's annual general meeting, Executive Vice President and Chief Investment Officer at Sygnus, Jason Morris, discussed ambitious targets for the company.
We get to reimagine SCI's growth path. So last year we would have said we wanted to hit $8 million in total investment income. Now we have to reimagine what that $8 million is going to be over the next 2 to 3 years, which we haven't completed yet, but it's certainly going to be a multiple of $8 million for sure. We get the ability to attract and build relationships with multinational companies, financing companies, and with global institutional asset managers. I mean, SCI in the Caribbean, with most of its financing coming from Jamaica, is the same pension funds that you go to each time to raise capital, or the same pension funds you go to do co-investing, etc. Now the opportunity set is being opened up. I will be opened up massively.
SCI achieved a $54.7 million capital raise, comprising a record $27.2 million additional public offering and a $27.5 million through private placement of notes. The company also made its highest dividend payment of $1.5 million in October 2021. Despite this growth, SCI's stock price has seen little to no appreciation during the pandemic, but its CEO is not fazed.
Before COVID came in February 2020, the stock was trading at 21 US cents and US dollar shares, and about $28 at the peak on the Jamaican dollar side. COVID came in March, okay, the stock price, all the entire market went down. So it went down to 12 US cents and I think $14, right? But we have had COVID and we have had record financial results, record earnings per share, record financial results, and the stock price has not moved. And when I
Saying SCI's stock is undervalued, Mr. Morris said a share buyback or similar program would help provide liquidity support to these shares in a thinly traded market. He also highlighted that SCI has consistently been one of the highest dividend-paying stocks on both the JMD and USD index of the Jamaica Stock Exchange.
But part of the undervaluation is if somebody has some shares and they buy to get benefit from the dividend and then they want to sell to do something with the money and then come back in for the next dividend payment, there isn't a lot of liquidity or a lot of float to take up those small orders. And therefore we want to do something about that. So we are basically exploring a number of avenues. One of them obviously is a type of buyback, which we wouldn't be buying back all the shares at once. It would be a buyback program, so that we can, one, enhance shareholder value by buying back undervalued shares in the first instance, but two, providing liquidity support for when people want to sell, 100,000 US, 300,000 US, or 100,000 Jamaican dollar worth of SCI shares. That doesn't cause a problem to draw down the share price and then create a negative feedback loop in the mind of investors.
In the meantime, SCI expects to receive regulatory approval for the acquisition of Puerto Rico-based private credit company Acrisson Financial Corporation within the next 30 to 60 days. Morris said the acquisition would give SCI access to additional alternative investment strategies such as impact investing themes and access to fast growth industries.
We're getting exposure to higher quality assets because of the nature of the companies that are operating in Puerto Rico, which is a U.S. territory. Many of the big name companies in technology and biopharma. In fact, Puerto Rico is perhaps the largest biopharma industry in the entire U.S. We get exposure to those type of assets. We get exposure to growth and technology and healthcare industries that are not readily available in the English and Dutch-speaking Caribbean. And that's a huge opportunity for SCI to leverage.
And motorists will dig a little deeper into pockets and purses this week as effective Thursday, February 3, there are increases in the prices of gasoline and diesel. 87 and 90 octane gasoline are both up by $3.06 this week and will be sold for $174.78 and $179.79 per liter. Automotive diesel fuel also saw a $3.06 price hike and will be sold for $174.66 per liter. Ultra-low sulfur diesel continues the $3.06 increase and will be sold for $180.60 per liter. Meanwhile, kerosene increased in price by $2.78 and will be sold for $150.70 per liter. Propane liquid petroleum will be sold for $76.19 per liter following a $3.06 increase. Butane liquid petroleum is also up by $3.06 and will be sold for $86.39 per liter. Be on the lookout for price changes as marketing companies and retailers will add their markup to these prices. In foreign exchange trading for Wednesday, February 2, the US dollar sold for an average $157.41. The Canadian dollar ended trading at $123.74. The pound sterling traded for $212.73, and the euro sold for an average $180.87. In Wednesday's trading session, the following reflect the movement of the JSE indices. The JSE index declined by 3,606 points to close at just under 400,000 units. The junior market index advanced by 108 points to close at over 3,000 units. The combined market index declined by 2,422 points to close at over 400,000 units, and the All-Jamaican Composite Index declined by 2,070 points to close at over 400,000 units. Overall market activity resulted from trading in 106 stocks, of which 53 advanced, 39 declined, and 14 traded firm. Stocks advanced for Access Financial Services Limited, AMG Packaging and Paper Company Limited, and Blue Par Group Limited. Stocks declined for 138 Student Living Jamaica Limited, 1834 Investments Limited, and Barita Investments Limited. Trading firm were CAC 2000 Limited, Caribbean Flavors and Fragrances Limited, and Derrimon Trading Company Limited. Spur Tree Spices Jamaica Limited was the volume leader with over 11.1 million units, followed by Wigton Wind Farm Limited ordinary shares with 4.4 million units, and Lumber Depot Limited with over 3 million units. In market data for oil prices eased on Thursday following weak U.S. payrolls data and some profit-taking, but remained underpinned by tight supply as OPEC Plus producers stuck to moderate planned output increases. Brent crude futures fell 61 cents or 0.7% to $88.86 a barrel. West Texas Intermediate crude was down 69 cents or 0.8% at $87.57 a barrel. U.S. private payrolls fell for the first time in a year in January, raising the risk of a sharp decline in employment that would deal a temporary setback to the labor market. Still, tight global supplies and geopolitical tensions in Eastern Europe and the Middle East have boosted oil prices by about 15% so far this year. Here are some of the stories making headlines across our region. We begin in Trinidad and Tobago, where the rising cost of food has become a major challenge for the National Schools Dietary Services Limited. That's according to its CEO, Stacey Baran, who appeared before Parliament's Public Accounts Enterprises Committee on Wednesday. We hear more from Mahalia Joseph Wharton.
The National Schools Dietary Services Limited NSDSL is still providing breakfast and lunch meals for the secondary school students out on rotation. Currently, they provide 23,257 breakfast meals and 25,299 lunch meals per week. CEO Stacey Barron told the Public Accounts Enterprises Committee the current prices per meal are $6.63 for breakfast, $9 for lunch, and $8.28 for a preschool meal.
Of course, if there's rising food costs, the caterers will find it being a big challenge to procure the ingredients for the meal.
She said because of the change in prices, they are also unable to provide items they would usually provide for students.
For breakfast, we normally do a fruit. Right now, we had to cut the fruit out.
Ms. Barron said they are looking at solutions, but only one seems feasible: an increase in the price per meal.
Yes, we've tried to look at solutions in terms of looking at bulk discounts, looking at the volumes, but with the rise in food prices, 4% on chicken, as much as 10% on bakery items. There are certain things that is beyond our control now.
The CEO said they are looking at $1 or $1.25 increase per meal, and she said discussions have begun with the Align Ministry before this is considered for long-term contracts, as it would mean a change to their budgetary allocation. The NSDSL was also heavily questioned by members of the PAAC about their internal auditing practices. Currently, the NSDSL outsources auditing services. In response to this, Chairman of the PAEC, Wade Marks, said the committee will be writing to all stakeholders involved to establish an internal audit department. Mahalia Joseph Wharton, TTT News.
In the Bahamas, the Davis administration has hired a U.S.-based firm to assist with the sale of the Grand Lucayan Resort on Grand Bahama. This according to Minister of Tourism and Aviation, Chester Cooper, who told parliamentarians the government has gotten 7 serious offers from potential buyers. Jasmine Brown has the details.
The Deputy Prime Minister telling members of Parliament that the Davis administration is closer to selling the Grand Lucayan Resort.
To expedite now the sale of the resort with the best possible terms, the Board of Lucayan Renewal Holdings Limited, the special purpose vehicle created to facilitate the sale of the resort, has engaged the services of Colliers International, a world-renowned real estate company with a vast professional network that is accustomed to handling large-scale, high-end touristic transactions. Madam Speaker,
when it comes to potential buyers who are showing interest in the property, Cooper says that number has climbed to 7.
Purchasing the resort will at a minimum be required to provide proof of funding and a vision and a plan to restore and revolutionize, help us open again the economy of Grand Bahama with a shared vision for the growth and development of this island. The offer process has begun in earnest. It will close at 5 p.m. on Wednesday, March the 2nd, 2022. Offers will be subject to rigorous due diligence to be vetted by Colliers and the Board of Lucayan Renewal Holdings Limited.
The Minnis administration purchased the resort from Hong Kong conglomerate Hutchison Whampoa in August 2018 for $65 million in a controversial move that Cooper called egregiously bad. Royal Caribbean Cruise Lines and the ITM Group, via a joint venture called Bahamas Port Investments Limited, signed the agreement to purchase the Grand Lucayan for $50 million in March 2020. But the Davis administration announced last year that it canceled the sale, with Cooper saying it was not in the best interest of Bahamians. He now says the government is doing what it can to ensure the resort's future owners have the right vision.
We will not tarry in causing there to be as swift as possible a transaction on the best terms possible to move this investment along.
Now, the Deputy Prime Minister's comments today echoed those made by the Prime Minister in Grand Bahama on Monday when he insisted both the Grand Lucayan and the Grand Bahama International Airport are key factors on getting that island back on track. Reporting for our news, I'm Jasmine Brown.
We kick off sports with football. Jamaica will now have to set its sights on the 2026 FIFA World Cup as all hopes of qualifying for the 2022 Qatar iteration evaporated with Wednesday's 1-0 loss to Costa Rica. Joel Campbell's goal in the 62nd minute sank the Reggae Boyz at the National Stadium. The Boyz had lost their previous qualifiers against Mexico and Panama. In athletics, William Knibb Memorial High School's track and field program got a $1.5 million donation from triple world record holder Usain Bolt. Bolt, who is a former student at the school located in Trelawney, says in an Instagram post, quote, "Always a pleasure to give back to my alma mater, William Knibb Memorial High School," end quote. The Sprint superstar is also urging other past students of William Knibb and the wider business community to join him in supporting the track and field program at the school, as this type of investment, he says, brings rewards. And in cricket, all-rounder Dottin cracked a career-best 150 in the first one-day international against South Africa. While the win for West Indies came largely by her doing, she says she was extremely happy to see other players stepping up with quality performances. The two sides battle in the third match of the series on Thursday. West Indies holds a 1-0 lead in the four-match series. And we get more from Newsroom Guyana.
The series is on the line. A win here, you can't lose from this point. But what is the mood in the camp, given what is at stake now? We know the West Indies team didn't have such, against top opponents, not a lot of good series results, but a big one is on the line here.
Well, I think the mood in the camp is in the right place. The girls are in the right space. Everybody's chirpy. Everybody is good. It's also good to see that there are different individuals that are actually playing a part in terms of scoring, chipping in with couple runs, and it's not mainly a pressure upon one person. So I mean, like, as I said before, the girls are in a good space. So I think that we just need to continue what we are doing. That's the only way that we will actually get better at how we played yesterday, into the next day. So I think we're in a very good space.
Final question is just, could you expound a bit on that part in terms of other players chipping in? Head coach had stated he was looking forward to see other players put up their hands and do well. We could expound how pleasing is that to you to see that if you don't always come through, there are other young players pitching in and getting the job done.
Well, to be honest, I'm very pleased. There are other, before back then where I got out, or Steph got out, other fans that would have thought that, well, that's the end of it. But no, I think that we're actually matured as a team together, and other players know their roles. So they have a Chanel Henry, Shadeen Nation, with who chipped in back then with the last game, and also Shakira Selma held in her nerve as well in terms of bringing the game to actual tie, for us to have another chance or another go at it in the Super Over. But to be honest, it's very pleasing to see, and it's very heartwarming.
And in a weather update, a flash flood warning for low-lying and flood-prone areas of St. Anne, St. Mary, Portland, and St. Catherine has been discontinued. However, the Met Service says there's a high-pressure ridge building across Jamaica. The ridge is expected to remain across the island through to tomorrow. Thereafter, a trough is expected to move into the vicinity of the island by Saturday. This afternoon, expect isolated showers mainly across hilly areas and western parishes. Tonight, lingering showers are forecast across northeastern parishes. On Friday, expect isolated morning showers across north central and northeastern parishes. Isolated showers across hilly areas and sections of southern parishes are forecast in the afternoon. And that's our package. Join us tomorrow, same time and place, for the news on PBCJ, the People's Station.